We're going to try a new wireless connection today. There's some issues with the Wi-Fi. So hopefully, whoever's watching online, let us know or if it's interrupting. Okay, let's start. We're in chapter 2 here in the Vayomer, Vayomer Hashem al Avram Lech, Lech, 1977. He said, right at the instruction of Hashem to Avram, Lech, from your father's home, from your land, your birthplace, to the land that I will show you. This instruction can be interpreted milmayla lamata and milmata lamayla, meaning that it's an instruction that the instruction is to Avram to descend down or to ascend higher up to a higher level. Going up. That chapter 3. Now we're focusing on the descent. So what's the interpretation? What does this mean? So he says, Avram represents a very Av is Chachma, father that represents Chachma. Avram, an exalted father, highest level within Chachma, a very high level that remains completely concealed. In the words of the Alter Rebbe, Seichel, we call right, and that highest level should come down into the level of the 10 attributes, come down to the lowest level, and within the lowest level, it should be in the lowest part of that level, the part that's revealed. Or it's Asher Ar'eka, the part of Malchus as it descends into the lower realm beyond it, beneath it. That is Ar'eka. So Ar'eka is interpreted two ways here. Ar'eka, I will show you two things. Either the land that I will show you, so in the first sense, what it means is, in our context, the lower level of Malchus, meaning the Malchus that descends to the lower realm beneath it. But then Ar'eka also means, I will show you, your essence will be revealed. Meaning that Hashem's instruction is that when the highest level comes down and is revealed in the lowest level, that reveals its essence. And that level, when that becomes revealed, experience yourself actually level than before its descent. So we see that through a descent, you reach a higher level. Right? And so therefore, since we're talking about the highest level, and what's the descent? The descent causes the highest level to be elevated. Same is true with regard to the neshama coming to the body. That the neshama also experiences a descent. The neshama is in heaven, and Hashem soul to come down to the lowest world, to our world, as a result of coming down, also is elevated. So the Rebbe explains that when we say that, what level are we talking about? We know there are 5 levels of the neshama. Nefesh, neshama, chay. These are the 5 levels of the neshama. The lower 3 levels, nefesh, ruach, and neshama, those 3 what are in parts of the neshama, chay and yechida, are transcended. They remain up in heaven. So when the neshama comes into this world, you think, what's the part descending into the world? The lowest. So nefesh, ruach, and neshama are elevated. So the Rebbe says no. It's based on what we say, that at the level of Avram, even at the highest level, elevated, is enhanced as a result of coming down to the lowest place. So the same is true with all levels of the neshama, levels of the soul, even the level of yechida, which remains with God. Audio. Let's turn off the Wi-Fi. Is the mic not close enough? I don't know if you should. No, don't restart it. Could you just turn off the Wi-Fi? You got that? Right, yeah, top. Yeah, over there. Okay, let's continue. Okay, we'll get this out. Work in progress. So we'll have an extender, for next. Okay.
The audio is just not.
Okay. Let's move a little closer then. So, what we're saying, the highest levels of the neshama, even yechida, which seemingly can't reach any higher, yechida is one with God. And we talked about this idea of idea of babua, the leslo to yichida, because it's totally one with God, is elevated. Also, here the Rebbe introduces a sikha of the Friedrich Rebbe about an aliyah to the Torah. The Friedrich Rebbe says that when a person is called up to the Torah, this aliyah, this ascent, being called up, affects all 5 levels of the soul. Levels, nefesh, ruach, neshama, but all five levels of the soul are elevated as and this is connected with the teva of Noach. Teva, what happened? He had 3 floors, tachtim, shlishim, and tachtim, right? The lowest level, the middle level, and the highest level. What happened as a result of the flood? What happened as a result of the flood is all levels of the teva, the whole teva is elevated, was raised, was floating above the water. So the teva was on the ground. Starts and the teva rises with the rising water, the whole teva. So it was all 3 were elevated. So what does that have to do? It explains because, like the word of the Baal Shem Tov, that the teva of Noach's ark, that's the story of the neshama coming into this world. And the world is a world of raging waters. That's neshama. So the Baal Shem Tov says, go into the teva, boyala teva. Hashem's instruction to go to the teva is an instruction to the neshama. You come into this world, go into the words. The teva doesn't just mean an ark, but also the words of Torah and Tefillah. So when a neshama enters into the words of Torah and Tefillah, so that protects it from the raging waters. But it's not just that it protects it from the raging waters, the neshama is enhanced as a result of it. Well, it's the point is the Rebbe is using this to set the premise, to prove the point that all elements are so he's connecting all of them together. The Rebbe wants to say that the neshama, through Lech Lecha coming down to this world, every part of the neshama is. How do we see that? So the Rebbe is citing precedent that we see with the teva, and we're going to the point that when the neshama comes to this world, the idea of the neshama entering into the teva. So what happens as a result? It's not just that you're protected from the raging water. It's not just you're not influenced, you're not broken by it, but as a result, the teva is elevated. The teva, all 3 floors, right? All 3 stories in the teva. And the Rebbe continues, not just that it's Vatorah Mateva, the teva was elevated, was lifted up, was raised up, but also Vatorah Mateva. When the water recedes, what happened? The teva rested. So there's, we talked about this in last class, the end of last class. There's this concept higher of ascent. It says about tzaddikim ein lahem menucha, right? That tzaddikim in heaven. So it says the righteous don't have any. They don't rest. They're always yechol mechal chol. They're always going higher and higher. So because they're always going higher, they're not resting. They're always moving up. But what happens when Mashiach comes? It says there's yom shekoli Shabbos and menucha. Mashiach comes is going to rest of pleasure. So and obviously then we'll also be reaching higher. We'll always be going higher because connecting to God is an infinite pursuit. But the point is it'll be in a way of pleasure. Whereas now it's a way of ein lahem menucha, a lack of rest. And when Mashiach comes, that ultimate time is going to be with pleasure. So we're talking about reaching the neshama can reach the highest levels as a result of coming into the teva, down, in other words, descending into this world. So what happens when the neshama comes to this world? All levels of the teva are shneim u'shlishim. Those are the 5 levels of the neshama. Nefesh, ruach, neshama, chai, yichida. Nefesh, ruach, neshama is the lowest level of the teva. Chai is the second story, and yichida is the highest. We'll analyze that a little closer in note 27. That's where we're holding. Okay, so that's the point. So the Rebbe is saying that through the this idea of Lech Lecha, the story of the neshama coming down, Lech Lecha, go down from your high place, come down into the lowest world. Through that, as Aretz HaShayachah, the neshama is enhanced, the neshama is elevated, and which level of the neshama? Even the highest level of the neshama. All the levels of the neshama. The connection to Yaakov to Teva of Noach is also connected with Yaakov Halach L'Darkei. The Rebbe mentions over there, but let's we already did. So now the question is though, we're saying that the Teva, the Rebbe is saying that the idea that we see that the Teva of Noach is these 3 levels, all 3 are elevated as a result of the water, the flood, this world of a raging flood. But we're talking about 5 levels of the neshama. In the teva, how do you fit 5 into 3? How does that work? So that the Rebbe addresses in note 27. He says like this. Let's see note 27. Miramaz. That brings from the Ramaz. He quotes the Ramaz Makubal from the 1600s. The Ramaz says that Shegimel b'chinas tachtim shnim u'shlishim hem biyah atzilus va'ak. The Ramaz says that these three levels, his pirush, his commentary on the three levels of the teva are biyah, atzilus. We know that we know four worlds, right? The four. But really there are five, because there's also beyond Atzilus. Atzilus is the first world that's confined. Ak, Adam Kadmon, is higher. That's the Olam Ein Sof beyond Atzilus, the infinite worlds that are before Atzilus, that you can't even really call them worlds, they're totally not definable. How does this help us here? This idea that the Ramaz says that the three levels of the Teva. So the Rebbe explains, via dua, quoting from Chaim Vital, from the Kisvei Arizal, that Shenaran he mibiyah, Chaya me'atzilus v'yichida me'yak. Ramaz says are biyah. And from the Kisvei Arizal, we learn from the teachings of the Arizal that the five levels of the soul correspond to these five levels in the worlds. You have Naran, the three lower levels of the neshama correspond to biyah. Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama correspond to Bria, Yitzir, Asiyah. A nefesh is right. Ruach is Yitzira, and Neshama is Bria. Yechida, that would be Atzilus. Kadmon, the higher level beyond Atzilus, to Yechida. So we see that once the Ramaz is saying that the three levels of the Teva correspond to these three worlds, and in other words, the breakdown of the worlds are Biyah, Atzilus, and Ak. So the same thing is Neshama, the five levels of the Neshama. That the lowest level of the Teva corresponds to four levels, the next level of the Teva corresponds to Chaya, and the highest level corresponds to Yechida. What is this idea out a little bit more? We talked a little bit about this actually in the last class as well. That when we divide the five levels of the neshama, so now all within the body, and so therefore they can all count as one level. Essentially, in general, if we're going to generalize, we can divide it. You can kind of divide the five levels of the neshama into two or three categories. There's naran, the levels that are in the body, and they're all counted as one because they're all internalized. They're all things that enter into the body, so they all are defined. They represent faculties and powers of the intellect, the emotion, as we've expressed and we explained in other classes. Then you have the transcendent level, the one that doesn't come into the body, and here you divide them into two. Which is the level of why do they get divided into two? We said Naran we can count as one because they're all premium. Since they're all internalized in the body, so they all count as one. So then Chai and Chida, which are transcendent, we should count them as one as well. Count them together. Why? Because Chai and Yechida are fundamentally different. Chai, corresponding to the of the neshama, we talked about Naran being the intellect and the emotions. And then you have Ratzin. Ratzin is higher than intellect. So Chaya would correspond to Ratzin, to the will of the neshama, which is, will is a transcendent power, a transcendent energy, one that's not as definable. Yechida is even higher than Ratzin. In other words, Chaya transcendent, but it's still defined. It's defined by its transcendence. Just as will is defined by desire. It's confined to that will. This is what I want. But Yechida's essence, that's not definable. It can't even be defined as transcendent. Can't even be defined as abstract. So that's totally undefinable. In a sense, you could say that even though you have Naran is one on one level, and those are internalized. Chai Yechida are transcendent into the body. In a sense, you could even a greater distance, a greater gap between Chaya and Yechida and Chaya, where the common denominator between between Aran and Chai is that they're defined. So one is defined by its limitation, and the other is defined by its lack of limitation. But they're still defined, whereas Yechida is not definable. So when we divide into three levels, Naran, all lumped together, all one level, and Yechida the highest. Ramaz says that the three levels of the Teva correspond to Bia, Atzilus, and higher than Atzilus, and Ak. The Kisveri says that the levels of the worlds, the 5 levels of the Neshama. And this idea of breaking it down into 3, the Zohar says that there are 3 worlds, plus Almin, that the Eibusha created 3 worlds. We don't really find anywhere a breakdown of 3, right? We find 4, here we're talking about 5. What's the meaning of 3? Because this is the breakdown. There's the Olam, one world. Then there's Atzilus. There's higher than Atzilus, which is a 3rd category. Those are the 3 worlds we're talking about. And so here is how we fit the 5 into 3. It's infinite worlds beyond Atzilus. Put it in other terms. You have an example is given for this of the hashpa of a Rav Tatam, the teaching. When a teacher teaches a student, what happens? You have the teacher who's a great genius and has information in his mind of the teacher, the vast knowledge and the depth of the knowledge, the depth of comprehension the teacher has. There's no room for student. A simple student and the simple student's ability to comprehend is non-existent there in the world of the teacher. So how does the teacher then? He's a teacher. How does he then teach to the student? So the first thing the teacher has to do is he needs the student's ability, and then in his mind he needs to create a space where he can distill some of that wisdom and make it palatable to the student, that the student should be able to appreciate it, should be able to comprehend it, should be able to grasp it. And what happens when the teacher does that? The teacher prepares a lesson, let's say, to teach the student, and then the teacher goes ahead and actually teaches the student. Now, you can't compare, even when the teacher is teaching the student, and we're talking about a teacher we're talking about a level, we're not talking about people that are within, reasonably, within to each other's comprehension and abilities. We're talking about a teacher that's totally above and beyond. So when the teacher is preparing this idea, so the teacher already is thinking of the student, considering the abilities, the limitations, and the talents of the student, and tailoring a class, the intellect or the idea, the teaching, the thought, the teacher's mind, even as he's preparing for the student, is still beyond the student's comprehension. The teacher then has to go ahead and teach it, and even there it's distilled even further and limited even more until the student can understand it. So you have 3 stages here. You have the intellect as it's within the teacher's mind, which really totally negates any concept of a student. It's totally beyond the world of the student. The student is non-existent in that reality, in that realm. Then there's but it's still within the teacher's intellect, and so therefore it's still far too intense for the student to comprehend. And then there's as the student actually is being taught by the teacher, right? Now, within the teaching itself, there are different levels. Here we're talking about 3 levels. But the point is that's already different levels. It's already receiving the information, right? So you have these 3 higher than Atzilus and Bia. You have Yechida, you have Chaya, and you have Naran, and that's how we divide them in the Teva. So we have from the Ramaz these 3 levels of the Teva correspond to these 3 worlds of Biaz. 1, Atzilus, higher than Atzilus is a 3rd. How since from the Kisvei Arizal we connect these 5 levels. So we have Naran corresponds to Bia, Chaya to Atzilus, and Yechida to higher than Atzilus to Ak. But then we also have something else. Friedrich in his Sikha says puzzling. He says over there that the Teva, so you have these 3 levels of the Teva, then you have the 4th and the 5th levels of the Teva. There's Tachtim, Shnim, Shlishim, ground level. And he says there's Revim and Chamishim. The 4th level, the Torah doesn't mention any 4th and 5th levels of the Teva. So where do the 4th and 5th levels come from? So Rebbe says this is from a different analysis of the Teva. There's a part of the Shalah. The Shalah says like this. It says that the 3 levels of the Teva, to breed Tzir and Asiyah. Ends up happening then. Once you're kidding, but there's higher than it. And so that's what the Friedrich Rebbe explains. He says like this. The next paragraph, 2nd paragraph of note 27. These 5 names of the neshama, the 5 levels of the neshama, of nefesh, ruach, neshama, chay, yichida, him tachtim, shnim, shlishim, rivim, v'chamishim. This is what the Friedrich Rebbe says, that these 5 levels of the neshama correspond to the 5 levels of the teva. Shehem, which are, as we just discussed, with the daled, these correspond to the 4 worlds of Atzilus, Bri, Yitzir, Asiyah, and the worlds that are higher than the infinite worlds that are beyond Atzilus. So he says, Biyah Gimel Bechinas. Here, the Friedrich Rebbe is counting Biyah is, which is Kapirish Ayatayrisha Mishalah. That Shatachtim, Shnim, Mushlishim, Him Biyah of the Teva correspond. But based on this, based on everything we just talked about before, even from the Ramaz, so talking about these levels and the way we divide and carry levels of the world and of the neshama, so Pizi Yeshrivim v'chamishim. Obedugmas, Hashem is the neshama. So once we're going to Eva as Biyah, so you have to say there are 2. The Rebbe doesn't explain here. So then, if that's the case, what happens to Atzilus and higher than Atzilus? So we know that they obviously are the Teva, so it's possible that they're not brought in the verse because they're higher than the description as the Shalah brings. But the point is that once we're talking that we're counting these 3 levels as Biyah, so there automatically have to be a 4th to account for all these levels. Okay. Anyway, what's the point of all this? The point we're making here is again to say that through the neshama coming down into this world, which is the metaphor for this is Noach going into the teva, being a world that's full of raging. That the teva is elevated, and what level of the teva? All the levels of the teva. So the same that when the neshama comes into this world, raging waters. It's elevated, and who's elevated? All 5 levels of the neshama are elevated. That's basically the takeaway. Okay, so I was going to try this with 2 here. The Rebbe is going to connect this again back to what we talked about in the interpretation of the pasuk that Avram. That when we say Lech Lecha, the idea is that the elevation happens not only on the lower levels, but Avram, even on the highest level, even the highest level, is also elevated. Asher Lecha is result of coming down below. Okay, so let's continue. B'dugmas. Last word on 4 lines from the bottom of our copies here on page Nation and Aleph. Okay, so b'dugmas hamavur le'ilsif Aleph. This is earlier in chapter 1. Shaydei halichas v'yiridus Avram el haaretz b'chinas malchus, through this descent of Avram coming down. Malchus, which what's the ultimate purpose of this descent is so that it should be revealed in the world's low. Malchus, we're talking about Malchus of Atzilus. And when we said Malchus, Asher Eka, Malchus, it's Malchus as Malchus descends into Biyah. So the point of this descent is that it should come down into Biyah. Okay, do Shalichas Avram ala Aretz b'chtei lahamshich b'Biyah. Ad ba'elam asa chana lamshacha shalidei ma'isa mitzvos begash mislachrim matan Torah. Let's skip that a second. We'll get back to that. So now, so through the descent and coming down into Malchus, and Malchus as it's supposed to go down into Biyah, through that we have an ascent in even Seichel and Elam Mikol Rain. So we tied the 2 of them together. What's this idea that Seichel and Elam Mikol Rain, the highest level, Avram, in the mystical sense, comes down? So he says, just as we have the literal interpretation of the pasuk, what was the point of Avram, the person? Avram coming. Yisrael, going to the land of Israel. What was the point of it? So it's explained in Chassidus that Avram going into this idea of Lech Lecha starts this process of preparation for Matan Torah. We know that Matan Torah, prior to Hashem giving Har Sinai, before heaven and earth were separate. They're 2 different. Even though the Gemara says that the patriarchs before they were given, so they observed the commandments. Their fulfillment of the commandments is different than ours. We actually discussed this in the Vayomer we learned last year at Shem and Turak Shmecha, right? We discussed a little bit that Medrash. So the point is like this: that before Matan Torah, the patriarchs performed the mitzvahs, but the performance of the mitzvahs spiritual realms. And it's only after Matan Torah, when Hashem breaks the barrier between heaven and earth, that we, by performing physical acts, with holiness, can sanctify, can make the physical holy. We bridge the two worlds together. We bring heaven and patriarchs weren't able to do. Nevertheless, even though that is something that it was established at Mount Sinai, something the patriarchs didn't have, nevertheless, they ultimately paved the way for us. So there's like this, like we have these two things. On the one hand, we say our in a higher level than the others, in the sense that we impact the physical world. On the other hand, our ability to do it, even though that idea, the bridging of the two worlds, is Hashem establishes that at Mount Sinai, but nevertheless, our ability to serve Hashem today comes as a result of the patriarchs. It was passed down in our genes from them. That's why we call them the Avos, because everything they did, they hand down to us. Right? It's hereditary. So we inherit that from them. So they prepare us for post-Matan Torah. So where is the preparation for our ability to bring holiness into the lowest realm? That starts with Avram's Lech. Avram's going. Hashem also tells him that he should go, even when he gets to Israel, he should go l'Arkol l'Rachba to explore the entire way for us. So just as it was with Avram, literally, there Avram, the whole point of Avram going from Ur Kasdim and going from Haran, moving from his father, was paving the way and to come into the physical world. So the same is true with regard to how it is mystically, that Avram level, and as a result, Avram reaches higher. And the same is true with the neshama. Physical world, the neshama and all levels of neshama are elevated and enhanced. Okay, chapter 3. We have a few minutes to start chapter 3. Yeah. What? Okay, so let's start chapter 3. So this closes out of Lech Lecha, the idea of Lecha going from above to below. Okay. Now chapter 3, interpretation. The second interpretation of Lech Lecha is simple reading of the verse itself, which is that this is an ascent. We're talking about going up. That this is a halicha the going from your land, from your birthplace, from your father's home, shahu, which is kepashtas hakasuv, is just an actual verse. Artzei v'goyim shel terach. Where was Avram going from? When we say that, when the pasuk says, "Go from your land, from your birthplace, and your father's terach." Who's terach? Hepechin yinatara. Terach was the opposite of purity. It's to put it mildly. Note 31. There are no quotes from the Medrash. The Medrash says, "Me'it and Torah mitame kagoyin Avram miterach." Praising this idea of how is it possible to have the pure come from the impure, like who? Like Avram, the pure who comes from terach, the impure. So we're talking about leaving terach, which is the opposite of purity, which is the darga hachi tachtoin, the lowest possible level. Level is once higher till he reaches the land. You can also follow al-bechinas hamalchus. Lowest place to malchus. Before we were talking about malchus, our starting point was all the way down to malchus. Here we're saying we're going up to malchus. And up to the level. What level do you go from the low purity, the house of terach? You should go up till the land. Where what happens to that land? Avram. It says that Avram, when he reaches the land, he builds a mizbeach. And who is he building a mizbeach for? Who is revealed to him? Shulamayim b'chinas malchus. This havaya hanira elav is higher than malchus. Va'ad asher vayivin sham mizbeach lavaya stam, to the point that he builds a mizbeach to havaya stam. B'chinas havaya de la'ela havaya nelim shulamayim havaya de l'tata hanira. Let's close out with what we just said here. Malchus, all the levels of godliness and the 10 attributes, the 10 spheres, everything has sort of parallel, just as we talked about the 5 levels of neshama and the 5 levels of the 5 worlds, etc. So the same is true. We're talking about the 10 back to the names of Hashem. So Malchus is connected to what name of God? God has many names. What name is Malchus associated with? Adonai. The name Adonai, it comes from the word Adon, which means Malchus is kingship, rulership. So where is God, the Melech, the king? That's that, and how's that expressed in terms of Shemus? That's Adonai. Adon Olam. God is the king, the ruler of the universe. Havaya, the name Havaya is. So when we talk about Havaya, here we're talking about higher than Malchus. We're talking about a level referred to as king. He's higher than that level as well, of being a ruler over the world. So that's a higher level. Within different levels. We've talked about this also in the past. The Leila, there's Havaya, the Lesata, there's the lower name Havaya, the higher name Havaya. So here we're saying that the Halicha Milmata L'mayla, going from below to above, we're saying go up to Malchus and even beyond Malchus. Because what happens when Avram reached that land, the level of Mizbeach, he built a Mizbeach. And who's he built a Mizbeach for? So there are two psukim there that talk about this, right? One after the other. It says, "Vayiven sham Mizbeach la'Havaya nira elav." Avram builds a Mizbeach to Havaya that's nira elav. And then afterwards it says, "Vayiven sham Avram Mizbeach la'Havaya." It says that Avram built a Mizbeach to Hashem. It doesn't say Hanira elav. So what does this mean? That Avram reaches Eretz Yisrael, that's Malchus. Then he climbs even higher than Malchus to building Mizbeach to Havaya, the level of Havaya that's revealed, and even higher than that, that he reaches that level of Havaya that's even beyond revelation, the higher level of Havaya, Havaya de Lesata, the Havaya that's near. Anyway, the point of this is that we see that Lecha represents this idea of going below, starting out from the house of Terech, from the levels of impurity, and a person is required to reach higher, then go higher and higher, and ascend to Malchus, and even higher than Malchus, into Havaya, and if lower level of Havaya, but Havaya de Lecha, the higher, which we'll continue discussing next part.